Hey, what's going on, guys? Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net, and welcome to our 2024 Men's US Open Semifinals preview and prediction. If you want to find out who I think is going to get through to the finals of this year's US Open, stay tuned. It's coming up next. All right, guys, and first things first, what a shocking U.S. Open this was, right? Carlos Alcaraz bowing out in the second round of Van de Zandschulp in straight sets, basically got blown off the court. It's kind of a very shocking result from Alcaraz. And then we had Djokovic, right? Novak losing in the third round of this event to a red-hot Alexei Popyrin, who took him out there pretty comfortably and looked like the superior player in that match. So that opened up the draw, and we get what we see now here in the draw results right here. We've got Jannik Sinner in the top half of the semi, the only seeded player to fulfill his seed, right? Number one seed, ending up in the semifinals. And then we've got Jack Draper here, the 25 seed, who snuck into that semifinal spot, who's going to play Sinner. And then in the bottom half of the draw, right, we've got Taylor Fritz, the 12 seed, taking on Frances Tiafoe, the number 20 seed, who did a good job a few weeks ago, losing to Sinner in the Cincinnati final, but looked really good in Cincinnati. And then Fritz has looked very strong in the U.S. Open here. And the cool thing for the Americans, right, in this event, we haven't had a U.S. Open male champion since Andy Roddick over 20 years ago at this point, right? So we've got two American men, Fritz and Tiafoe, facing off in the semifinals for the first time since 2005. If we go back and look at that 2005 draw for the U.S. Open, it was Andre Agassi against Robbie Ginepri in that semifinal, with Agassi winning, going on to the finals to play Roger Federer, where he lost a good match there. But it's been a long time since we've had success on the tour for American men's players. So the big question in this event is going to be, will the drought of American men's tennis players not winning a slam title since Andy Roddick, right, more than 2 decades ago, end in this event with either Taylor Fritz or Frances Tiafoe taking home a slam? So the first thing we want to do is look at how each player got to the semifinals in this tournament. So let's look at Sinner's path to the semis first. In the first round, right, played Mackie McDonald, dropped the first set there. Sinner looked, a little bit tight in that match starting out, coming off those allegations that he faced, right? And he was cleared of that doping situation, but dropped an opening set there to McDonald and then cruised through the next 3 sets comfortably, taking him out in 4 sets. From there, upstart, right? The young, rising 19-year-old Alex Michelsen. Thought this could be a little bit tighter than it was, but in round 2, Sinner steamrolls Michelsen 4-0-2, very comfortable in that match. And Michelsen had been in good form coming into that match. Then we got Sinner versus Christopher O'Connell, right? Again, very comfortable against the young Aussie player here. 1-4-2, overpowered him, right? We know Sinner, one of the biggest hitters on tour, forehand and backhand combined. And then if we look at the 4th round, right, this is where things get a little more competitive, playing the seeded player, Tommy Paul, coming into this match. We got the 1 seed versus the 14 seed. And again, in this situation, 2 tight opening sets for Sinner, right? Both tiebreakers. But then in the 3rd set, Sinner absolutely steamrolled over Tommy, really broke down Tommy's forehand technique and his backhand technique. Tommy has good technique on both sides. We had a little bit of a flaw on the forehand side with that Cobra type forehand. Sinner is able to break that down a little bit. And then on the backhand side, Tommy not quite elastic enough on the backhand side, and Sinner going backhand to backhand eventually wore him down and broke him down on that side as well. So Sinner got through Paul as I had predicted in our preview video and basically broke him down on both sides. Moving forward from there, he moves on to play Daniil Medvedev, right? And that's a really tough matchup. Medvedev owned the head-to-head against Sinner at one point, but again, we can see here Sinner comfortably tonight watching that match. Won the first set, dropped kind of a bizarre second set 6-1, and then steamrolled 6-1, 6-4 to take out Medvedev, his toughest opponent of the tournament, in the quarterfinals. Let's move on now and look at Jack Draper's path to the semifinals. And Draper, a really interesting story, right? A British player, hasn't been a top player since Andy Murray. So this is a chance for a young British player to kind of step up and take the torch from someone like Murray and make a push into the top 10 or top 5. Draper certainly has the game to do it. He's a left-hander. In the first round, his path was Zhang from China, a very, very good player. I thought this match would be a lot tighter than it was, but Draper steamrolled through this match, right? 3-0 and then a default in the third set, but was up again 4-0 there. Straight sets, no problem, goes through Zhang very comfortably. In the second round, Facundo Diaz Acosta, right? The Argentine player. Draper goes 4-2-2 to comfortably beat Diaz Acosta there. Draper, very, very strong backhand. Been very impressed, though, with his lefty slice serve on the ad side out to a right-hander's two-handed backhand, really opening the courts. If that player hits to Draper's backhand, he's got such a good two-hander. He hits to the open court powerfully to expose them on the run there. Or he'll take his forehand if you hit to that side and hit behind you on that return of serve situation. So Draper really serving well, and then he's got that big two-handed backhand. Next round, third round, right? Van de Zandschulp, the guy who took out Alcaraz comfortably in 3 sets. Draper dispatches him very comfortably here, 3-4-2. Pretty clean, easy sweep in that match. Then we go to the fourth round, playing Mahach, who had taken out Sebastian Korda, the 15 seed in the previous round, and who looked very good. But again, Draper here, 3-1-2, straight sets over a very good player. Then we go to the quarterfinals. We got Draper versus de Minaur, right? The Demon, the favored player, led the head-to-head matchup against Draper 3-0 coming into this. Didn't really think that Draper was going to win this match, but Draper, again, straight sets, 6-3, 7-5, and 6-2. So up to this point, Draper is now in the semifinals of the U.S. Open, his first semifinal appearance in a major. This guy hasn't dropped a set to anybody. That's unbelievably impressive, especially on fast courts, not to lose a set through the first 5 rounds. Guy's 15-0 in sets, and now he's going to take on Jannik Sinner. If we look at the head-to-head matchup for these guys, we can see, interestingly enough, right, that Draper actually leads the head-to-head against Sinner 1-0. But if we look at that match history a little bit here, guys, we can see that was 2021, 3 years ago. They played at London Queen's Club on grass, and Draper won that in 2 tiebreak sets. We know Sinner's a completely different player than he was back then, and we know that Draper is also a different player from back then. Sinner, obviously, massive improvements from 3 years ago, being the #1 player in the world right now. So I guess the big question about this match is who's going to win this match. We know Draper 1-0 head-to-head, but that head-to-head was from 3 years ago. Recent form, Draper hasn't dropped a set in this U.S. Open. Sinner looking very good, convincingly over Tommy Paul and then Daniil Medvedev back-to-back. So here's my 3 keys to who's going to win this match, right? One of the biggest ones is going to be how well Sinner can handle Draper's lefty slice serve on the ad side out to the Sinner backhand. If Sinner doesn't handle that well, if he can't hit deep returns on that shot or hit powerful returns that can do some damage to Draper on the first ball, and Draper is able to hit to the open court to the Sinner forehand or hit behind Sinner to his backhand, that's going to be a big key in this matchup, how well Sinner can handle the Draper wide slice on the ad side, that serve. The second big key in this match is going to be Draper's forehand technique. He has what's kind of been coined the next-gen forehand, where there's a big tilt of the elbow, and Draper's a lefty, but a big tilt of the elbow up on the forehand technique. Draper has this, and Sinner, if he's able to hit enough power over to that Draper forehand, if Draper's doing that big tilt, Draper's going to shank some balls and hit some balls unintentionally short, and then Sinner's going to come forward and clean up that mess and do damage with forehands and backhands. Draper can't afford to let that happen. So the Draper forehand is going to be really key along with that wide slice serve on the ad side. The last big key in this match is, can Draper, with that unbelievably clean backhand of his own, can he do damage hitting cross-court to cross-court against Sinner's forehand in this match? If he's able to do that and expose Sinner's forehand just enough, he can definitely step in and win this match. But it all depends on those 3 big keys to this match. Again, the serve, Draper's forehand technique, and Draper's ability to do damage with his own backhand to Sinner's forehand side. So the big question is now, guys, is who am I taking to win this first semifinal? I'm sticking with my pick to win the tournament. From before this thing even started, I'm saying Jannik Sinner is going to beat Draper in 4 competitive sets. He's got too much gas. He's going to expose that Draper forehand a little bit, and I do think he's going to handle the Draper wide slice serve on the ad side well enough to not get himself in trouble in these sets. Let's move on to the second semifinal now. So we've got the 12 seed Taylor Fritz against the 20 seed Frances Tiafoe. Let's look at Fritz's path here to the semifinals and take a look at who he beat in this tournament. So first round, right? Ugo Carabelli from Argentina. Pretty routine match here, 7-5, 6-1, 6-2 Taylor Fritz. If we go to round two, right? Berrettini, the very dangerous Italian player, a lot of injury issues in the last few years. But Berrettini, again, former Wimbledon finalist, right? Former top 10 player, a very good player with a huge forehand, but who's had a very suspect and technically deficient backhand for a long time, and that leaves him in a tough position. Great serve, great forehand. But if you can find his backhand, which Taylor Fritz did in this match, and go backhand to backhand with him, or take your backhand down the line to expose the opening to the Berrettini forehand side when he runs around to hit his forehand from the backhand side, you can beat Berrettini in this matchup, and that's what Fritz was able to do. So Fritz takes out the dangerous Berrettini in round two. I made that prediction in my preview video, 6-3, 7-6, final set not competitive, 6-1 over Berrettini. Round three, gets his second Argentine of the tournament, gets Comasana, beats him 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. Very comfortable for Fritz in the third round. In the fourth round, runs up against the seed Casper Ruud. This is the true test. You get a top 10 guy who's a good player, but not as good on a fast hard court. Casper definitely much more comfortable on red clay. Fritz drops the opening set 6-3 to Ruud, comes back 6-4, 6-3, 6-2, and wins that match in four, again, comfortable sets. I didn't think Fritz would get through Zverev if they met in this tournament in the quarters, but to my disbelief, right, Fritz takes him out in four sets, 7-6, 3-6, 6-4, and 7-6. On a fast hard court like this, Fritz had enough firepower, but also showed some really good defensive skills to beat Zverev, who is playing very far behind the baseline in very defensive positions for the most part. I think Zverev thought he was going to out-rally Fritz and play enough counter defense in these situations to get Fritz to make enough mistakes, but it wasn't enough. Fritz was able to go head-to-head with Zverev, backhand to backhand, and then also able to use his forehand to really open up the court to both sides and finish off a lot of points. So really good tennis from Fritz in this quarterfinal match. And then we know Fritz is playing Frances Tiafoe in this quarterfinal, right? So let's look at Tiafoe's path to the quarters. In the first round, Kovacevic, the American player who played at the University of Illinois, one-handed backhand, nice smooth game, but no major weapons. And that one-hander can be picked on a little bit. So Tiafoe pretty comfortably here, somewhat tight sets. It was 6-4, 6-3, 4-6, and then 7-5 in the fourth set. Kovacevic pushed him a little bit more than I thought he could, but ultimately Tiafoe was able to expose that one-handed backhand and do a lot of damage to that side. Second round, Tiafoe against a formidable opponent who I thought might give him some trouble, Shevchenko, one of these guys with a big forehand tilt. These courts at the U.S. Open are playing faster than I thought they'd be playing this year, especially after watching the qualifying. Courts are playing quick. It's doing a lot of favors for Francis. It favors his athleticism and his style of backhand, which is not a very top spinny or big backhand. His backhand tends to be a little flatter, can skip through the court. In this match, he exposed Shevchenko's forehand, returned really well, and used his speed to play good defense and really open it up, beat him 6-4, 6-1, was up 1-0 in the third set, and got Shevchenko to retire in the second round match. Then we got third round, right? The big coveted matchup. I had these guys both getting the third round, Tiafoe versus Ben Shelton, and I didn't think Tiafoe was going to beat Shelton in this match. I thought I'd be close, but I had Shelton coming through. Tiafoe proved me wrong, right? 4-6, 7-5, 6-7, 6-4, and 6-3. Tiafoe beats him in 5 sets. Very competitive match. This match, just basically down to the wire, splitting hairs as far as who's going to win and who's going to lose. Tiafoe, again, really good movement around the court, handled Ben's serve well enough and was able to get the win here. Then he moves into the fourth round, gets Popyrin, who's coming off a Masters 1000 title in Canada, right? Popyrin coming off a lot of confidence winning that tournament, and then Popyrin also beating Novak Djokovic in the previous round. When Popyrin beat Djokovic in that match, it basically opened up the entire draw on the bottom half and made it kind of, a shootout, who's going to step in and who's going to get to the semis from that point forward. Well, Popyrin wasn't able to do it because Tiafoe took him out in 4 sets here, 6-4, 7-6, 2-6, dropped that third set, and then beat him 6-3. In this match, Popyrin wasn't good enough movement-wise. Tiafoe was a better mover, a better athlete on the court, and was able to expose Popyrin's movement a little bit with a lot of backhands hit down the line to the Popyrin forehand side. The next matchup, right? Grigor Dimitrov, Frances Tiafoe. I thought Dimitrov here in the quarterfinals would use his backhand slice a little bit more effectively. Frances did a good job of kind of holding off that backhand slice, not popping up balls, and not allowing Grigor to step around then and crank forehands. Frances did a really good job in this match, beating Grigor in 4 sets. First set, Tiafoe 6-3, then 6-7, 6-3. Tiafoe up a break or two in the 4th set, 4-1. Dimitrov retires with a leg injury, but to me, Frances comfortably had this match in his back pocket and was going to win. So we've seen Taylor and Frances's path to the semifinals, right? We know who they've beaten, but what's their head-to-head matchup look like in this situation? Well, it's a really interesting head-to-head. I didn't realize it was so skewed, but if we look at this here, right here, guys, we can see Taylor Fritz actually leads the head-to-head against Tiafoe 6-1, which was surprising to me. I didn't realize they'd played 7 times on tour already before this semi. But if we look at the history of the matches, right, the last time they actually played was 2023 in Acapulco. So it's been over a year and a half since they played their last match. We can also see that a lot of the matches had pretty tight score lines for the most part. So this thing kind of, to me, it's 6-1 Fritz in the overall head-to-head, but it's a little bit of a toss-up match, and there's some key factors in terms of who's going to win and lose this match. So let's look at the 3 big keys to winning this match. So key number 1 to winning this match to me is Fritz's backhand and his ability to go to Tiafoe's backhand with his own backhand and break Tiafoe's backhand down. This court, this faster paced skidding court, has done Tiafoe a lot of favors. His backhand's one of the slower two-handed backhands on tour in terms of pace and actual spin. He doesn't have a lot of power necessarily on his backhand. What he does usually well with it is he takes time away from you by taking it early and having it skip through the court. And this fast court at the US Open does that for Tiafoe. It allows his backhand, that shorter swing backhand, to skip through, and it provides him with the pace he needs to do damage with that side. The question is, will Fritz be able to go backhand to backhand with Tiafoe and break that side down enough to do some damage and get Frances to either hit short balls that Taylor can step around and hit forehands with, or will he get errors from that Tiafoe backhand? The second big key to this match, right, is will Frances be able to expose Taylor Fritz's movement? I'm not saying Taylor Fritz is a slow human, right? But he's not known to be a great defender per se, and not known to be a speed demon around the court. He's not Alex de Minaur, right, around the tennis court. However, in this event, especially against Zverev in the last round, Fritz's movement did look improved. It did look better. So the question is, will Tiafoe be able to use his forehand and backhand to expose Fritz's movement? If he's going to expose Fritz's movement, it's going to be with that big forehand any chance he gets, taking it to the corners of the court and really spreading the court open and seeing if he can force Taylor into some errors. And the last big key to this match for me is Frances Tiafoe's forehand technique, right? He sort of has this limp-wristed, big windup on the forehand side, right? Is that forehand going to cost him on a fast court against Taylor Fritz? Can Fritz serve big enough? Can he hit his forehand big enough to Frances's forehand? And can he hit his backhand cross court big enough to Frances's forehand to have that big windup on the forehand be a liability for Frances in this match? It's a liability in certain situations. When you watch Frances play and somebody hits a really big or deep shot to his forehand side, that big windup Frances has where he comes through and does this, sometimes that will be late or cause him to be late, that big windup on the shot. He'll have late contact. The wrist will be in a weak position, and the shot will come back as a really weak shot. So if Fritz is able to hit deep and hit enough pace to the Frances Tiafoe forehand and expose that and get Frances to kind of cough up or flub up some short balls, that's going to help Fritz win this match. So now that we have the keys to this match, I guess the question is, who's going to win this match between Frances Tiafoe and Taylor Fritz. To me, this is sort of a toss-up match, but in this situation, semifinals of the U.S. Open, I think Taylor Fritz is about to make his breakthrough. I think he's going to take this match probably in 5 sets. I'm calling him the favorite to win this one, but if Tiafoe defends really well and doesn't get exposed on his forehand and backhand side, he also has a chance to come through. But again, taking Fritz here in 5. All right, guys, that wraps it up for our 2024 Men's US Open semifinal preview and predictions. If you found this video helpful or you feel like you learned something today, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'm Jason Frausto for tennisunleashed.net. I'll see you next time.